notice, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani invited the public to give proposals on next year's budget by the end of August 30th, 2021. This is ahead of the usual November 30th deadline. The notice comes less than a month after the state started implementing the budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. All right, let me bring in our analyst, that is Ken Gishinga, joining us from our City Center studios. Well, Ken, quite an interesting development. This might be seen as the election budget, the last fiscal budget for the President Uhuru Kenyatta administration. Perhaps what might characterize this in the face of already a budget which has a huge deficit running in the trillions?
Many thanks, Abi. Indeed, this is a significant time in which Kenyans are invited to give comments on what they expect next year. I think far too often Kenyans wait until the budget is read in June before they complain on taxes and on other measures. So I think this is a time for Kenyans to be proactive, to be able to submit their proposals before August 30th, so they are incorporated into the budget cycle. I think one of the challenges, though, is the economic survey that normally comes from the Bureau of Statistics, typically in April, never came out this year. It still hasn't come out. So we don't have a full picture of 2020. So it will be very difficult for some people to be able to make a good assessment on the state of the economy when we don't have full year figures for 2020. So we really hope that the Bureau of Statistics can be able to release the economic survey to inform the submissions into it.
Interesting. And perhaps can help us understand, the Treasury indicates that they need to start this process early, considering the elections will be held in August next year. And from where you sit, what are likely to be the next priority projects that might really dominate this coming year's financial budget?
Well, obviously, the president remains committed on the big four agenda of food security, affordable housing, universal healthcare, and manufacturing. That said, particularly on food security, we are concerned that we are not seeing the kind of allocation that you would expect, because Kenya is a signatory of the African countries that has pledged to commit 10% of their budgets to agriculture. But in the last budget, only 2% of it was allocated to agriculture. And we are seeing the cost of food in Kenya rising. So I think part of the submissions that the public needs to make before August 30th is to really request and to try to understand why the Treasury has never been able to make that 10% allocation to agriculture, because agriculture contributes 25% of the GDP and is a bedrock of the economy.
Interesting, Ken. And I'd like us to shift gears a bit and talk matters that will also be quite important. And this is touching on the independent power producers in the country. And just before we get into that discussion, I'd like us to play a quick story where the government has announced that electricity offered to investors at the multi-billion shilling Naivasha Industrial Park will be cheaper by over 50% in a move to woo more local and international investors in the special economic zone, which is already served by standard gauge railway from Mombasa Port. Under the program, investors are set to get electricity at between 5 shillings and 6 shillings 50 cents per unit, against the current rate of between 19 shillings and 21 shillings and 6 cents. The East Africa Communities, yes, Aidan Mohammed, indicated that this will drastically reduce the cost of power.
Energy costs, which are generally difficult to fix immediately, we have tried to work around in developing special economic zones, industrial parks, export processing zones that are dedicated areas that will be able to compete with the best in the world.
2021 as a country and as KEPSA, we identified 5 key pillars that will help us. On the public-private dialogue, we looked at the indexes, the Global Competitive Index and the Doing Business Index. From the 2014, we identified what position 136, but we targeted to be above 50. We are currently at 56.
We have succeeded far more than we have failed in terms of improving the doing business environment. Excitement in the DR Congo about Naivasha is palpable, especially in the North Kivu, the South Kivu regions. They cannot wait for the Naivasha Inland Container Depot to really hit the momentum.
All right, Ken, quite an explosive issue when you touch on electricity prices in Kenya. We are one of the countries that is yet to fully address the high cost of power, which has, of course, made doing business in the country quite a Herculean task. Perhaps from where you sit, Ken, what should we address specifically? Because the cost of power is determined by quite a number of aspects.